Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We are joined by Adrian Wong. He is UK Forest Lead for SUGi. And if you don't know what SUGi is, SUGi create pocket forests all over the world using the Miyawaki method. We're going to learn a bit more about that shortly as well. But SUGi's work has proved that when nature returns, so does health, connection, and resilience. And obviously, for all our listeners who are involved in biophilic design, if we can help specify more microforests wherever we can, particularly in schools and healthcare, for me, that's my big bugbears, then I think we're in a good place. Adrian is a dedicated regenerative planting specialist, replicating the natural ecosystems to benefit biodiversity, particularly by bringing nature into the urban landscape. He's also going to be speaking at the Biophilic Design Conference at Westminster this year in London on the 17th of November. So please search Biophilic Design Conference or visit the website journalofbiophilicdesign.com to find out more and book your in-person or virtual attendance tickets. Well, enough of me waffling, Adrian. Many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on here, Ness. It's a pleasure.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please? What you do, what SUGi does,
Yeah,
and its aims.
yeah, sure. So, let me start with SUGi. So we're a nonprofit based in London, but we operate all over the world. I think we're operating out of 54 different cities worldwide, and beyond London, that these are places that are very close, or fairly close. So we'll do UK wide. So we've got Glasgow, we've got Bristol, we've got Cornwall as some of the UK forests that we do. But then we're going further afield as well. So we have quite a few forests in India. We've done some in Mexico City, or one in Mexico City, in Patagonia, Australia, the US, kind of spread out all over the world. In fact, I think we have 250 forests worldwide at the moment. So, for a small team that has only been, based in London, we've kind of been able to really spread the work around the world. And yeah, so we've been around for about 6 years. So we are quite a young company in itself, but so again shows how much we've been able to accomplish in that time. And as you said, we base our planting methodology on the Miyawaki method. So what we do is we plant urban forests. In cities worldwide. And the kind of the ideal size for a forest for us is about 240 to 260 square meters. So it's about the size of a tennis court, to give you a picture of what we do.
Okay.
And in a space that small, we will fit about 600 trees. So
Wow.
as you can imagine, it is very cramped. It's very tight. We plant them when they're small saplings, so little whips that are maybe 20 to 40 centimeters tall. And in about 3 to 4 years, those whips will probably be somewhere up at about 4 meters.
Wow.
So they grow really quickly. Uh,
Wow.
and part of the reason well, the main reason that happens is because of the Miyawaki methodology. So this methodology was invented in the 70s by a professor or a botanist professor in Japan called Akira Miyawaki. And the process stipulates that you plant really densely, you amend soils so that they become very healthy and living soils. And then you mulch very heavily so that you're not having to worry about losing moisture or watering quite a lot. So in the first 3 to 4 years, these forests do need human intervention. So you will need occasionally to potentially water. So especially if we've had like a drought that like we had this year in spring, and that carried over into summer in the UK. Some of those forests that we had planted early on in the year had to be watered. Um, and occasionally we'll need to do some maintenance, so that might mean kind of doing a little bit of weeding. If we have weeds that are coming in that might smother the forest, or we might need to do some, damage control. And we usually get damage control from things like, you know, birds that are really curious, especially crows, super curious animals, and they're always looking for worms. So if it's a new sapling, they'll pop that up, and more likely than not, there'll be a worm under there. So it's a great treat for them. Sometimes foxes get into there, and they're super curious as well. So they're digging it up stuff. So occasionally we need to go back in there and replant some of those plants there. So yeah, we do a little bit of maintenance for the first 3 or 4 years, but then beyond that, the forests look after themselves.
Mhm.
They become a self-sustaining ecosystem,
Mhm.
and they require no human intervention after that point. Um, and then what you'll have is a forest that develops at a very rapid rate.
Mhm.
And you'll have a mature closed canopy forest. So that's a forest that would have, your mature beeches, your mature oak trees, and the canopy above the forest is closed off. That it usually reaches that level in about 40 years. The ones in Japan have are at that stage. Whereas if you were doing it naturally, if it was nature doing it naturally, it usually takes 150 to 500 years for that process to happen. So you can see it really supercharges it.
Yeah.
And in that time, you've got all of this biodiversity that comes into it. The forest becomes really self-sustaining, so you get really amazing, beautiful, alive soils. Um, and then there's a whole raft of kind of um, green infrastructure that gets created, or nature-based solutions, and really looking for the right word for it now. Look, you're getting a lot of um, benefits for cities. So
Yeah.
mitigating heat island effect, flood mitigation, and then all of the biodiversity. So that bringing all that life into it, but then also the mental and physical health that humans can benefit from being around the spaces. Um, so all of that is kind of part of the reason of why we do what we do. We want that kind of life, and we want to bring all of that, all of those benefits to humans that live in cities.
Mhm.
Um, my personal, I guess, m my personal journey with SUGi started about 2 years ago. So just under 2 years ago is when I joined SUGi. And I came to SUGi as a volunteer. I went out to one of the plantings that we did out in Barking and Dagenham. And that kind of turned into a part-time role, and that part-time role led into to what I'm doing right now, which is the UK forest lead. And that involves planning, designing, and planting forests. So those are as a forest lead, that's the main responsibility. Um, but then beyond that, and because London's our base, my role started off as what we call a forest keeper,
Okay.
and that's generally the maintenance and the aftercare once the forest has been planted. So that would be the person who would visit the forest on a regular basis. So we have 31 forests in London.
Wow.
Um, I visit each forest every 4 to 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And I do the maintenance for those forests. So that would mean watering if it's required, weeding if it's required, or kind of repairing or doing any damage control that we would need to do if it's required.
Mhm.
So I think it kind of shows you how little maintenance is required for our forests, because there's 31 of them and there's one of me. Um,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it doesn't really need a huge amount of manual labor to look after these forests once they've been planted properly.
Yeah.
Find that the most common I guess, role that I have as a as maintenance is actually rubbish collection. It's
Oh,
the
really?
human, it's the human yeah, interaction or kind of waste that falls into the forest that is the biggest thing that is required. So it means a lot of, crisp bags, yeah, shopping bags, beer cans, those kind of things are the things that need to be removed. Uh, and then beyond that, I do a lot of community engagement with SUGi. So we do this thing called SUGi walks during the summer.
Mm,
So every month we'll do a walking tour to or four of our central London forests, and it's a 4 hour walk, and we will kind of visit each one, and then we'll go through kind of the processes that we use to build our forests, and then a little bit of a story of all the forest itself. But what we've also found is that it's a great space for our network to meet each other,
mm,
and it's a lot of like-minded individuals that come in. So people who are working in the similar field, who are studying in the similar field, and it's a great opportunity for them on a very slow kind of way. It's 4 hours, a lot of walking. It's a great way for them to interact and make connections that way. And then we do a lot of other things as well. So we'll do cleanup events in forests. We'll do weeding events. We'll do what we call the BioBlitz that we do in a lot of our forests, where we're recording all of the biodiversity that are in our forest. So we invite our community to come join us and do all of those things.
mm.
So yeah, I guess that's my role within SUGi. Yeah, quite a lot.
Quite a lot, yeah. I
Quite a
think
lot.
I think it's I remember interviewing ages ago James Godfrey Fawcett
Yeah,
in Fusugi, and he was explaining about the Miyawaki method, and I keep banging on about it, which is why when we met, and we've reached out, and obviously you're speaking out at the conference,
right.
I'm so keen for designers, landscape designers, architects, whatever. If we've got an opportunity to plant something rather than just, and we've got an opportunity to really create something that's really supporting biodiversity net gains and all that kind of thing that businesses are trying to do. I think
Mhm.
SUGi, what you do is a wonderful thing. And isn't, I mean, my sort of understanding is that the Miyawaki method is almost replicating what nature does in a kind of like condensed way sort of thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. So what we're essentially doing is creating similar um, a similar environment if a mature tree has fallen in the forest. So now what happens is the canopy opens up, a lot of sunlight comes down to the ground, and all the small saplings that have been sitting around under this mature tree, not getting a lot of light, not able to grow, all of a sudden gets all the resources that it needs. And all of a sudden, what you're having is all this competition to take up that space. And that's what we're doing by planting saplings in these small spaces. All of the saplings kind of try to grow to the light as quickly as possible to get that advantage so that they can take up the canopy space. So what we're doing is mimicking that,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, creating the right environment. So the similar environment that you would get in a forest.
Hmm.
So by amending the soils,
Yeah.
we're creating that environment where a mature forest has great soil because you've got all the fungi, you've got all the microbiomes in there, you've got the mycelium that's all connecting to each other. But then by putting a mulch layer, you're mimicking again the floor cover that you would get in a forest with all the leaf mold that's fallen or all the leaf that's fallen onto the ground and creating that mulch layer. So yeah, absolutely trying to mimic nature.
Yeah. So just actually just going to sort of jump around a little bit because I do want you to talk about the different projects and things that you're doing. So to kind of put context, but as soon as we're talking about soil, I mean, I mean, in cities, I think the way we construct, there's so much pollution and concrete dust and everything else that kind of ends up, and like you just mentioned, even crisp packets and all the human created waste that ends up in the soil. Sometimes we don't even have any soil,
Mhm.
actually. Do you prepare the land first?
Absolutely. So we believe that everything starts in the soil.
Yeah,
Without a living, healthy soil, we couldn't do what we're doing and have the success that we have.
yeah.
I would say. you know, 90% of the soil in cities are dead or
Mm,
dying. What we're doing is we cover these with impermeable surfaces, so like cement or asphalt or even a building over it. So anything that's in the soil underneath that is not getting sunlight, it's not getting water, it's not getting oxygen. So anything that's in that soil will eventually die. Um, a lot of the times, or on some instances, what we're doing is we're tearing up that tarmac before we can get to the soil, before we can plant.
yeah,
And that soil is completely depleted and is lifeless. So what we need to do is bring in all the amendments that we need to bring life back into that soil. So the first thing we'll do is aerate the soil. That means turning the soil.
okay.
We dig down about a meter into
Wow,
the ground to
really?
lighten up the soil. And then we bring in amendments. So we'll bring in different things to keep that aeration so that you can't compact it as easily. But we'll also bring in amendments that will break down slowly over time and release the nutrients that you would need in a soil to
Mm,
make it to feed the microbiome that's being attracted into that space.
mm,
But sometimes we're finding that we don't have that microbiome or we don't have the fungi in there. So we'll bring in mycelium dust
okay.
or mycelium powder to help kickstart that. Or in some instances, we've even brought in worms because we need that top predator in the soil to be able to aerate to kind of leave castings and bring it back to life. And then when we get amendments that we put in to break down, we'll bring things like wood chip, or we'll bring in high nitrogen uh, plant stocks or that type of thing, so that as they break down, they're feeding the soil. As the fungi finds the wood chip, it starts feeding off of the wood chip, and then it starts spreading. So that happens, in a very slow manner, but it also gets kick-started very quickly.
Mm,
So that's the main thing is get the soil right. And then what we find, everything's super easy. Like once you have a living, healthy soil, your plants are just, you don't really need to do as much. You're not worrying about having to fertilize. You're not worrying about pests and diseases as much. You're not worrying about how much water is being retained in the soil because the soil is doing all that work for you.
mm. Wow,
Um,
amazing. Actually, when you're talking, you're creating an environment ultimately, aren't you, where the plants and the trees and everything and life can flourish. And,
yeah,
and it's kind of ironic. It's what biophilic design does. We create environments inside the built environment and whatever so that we can flourish and all life can flourish. So actually, this is almost like an allegory of
yeah,
of what we should be
absolutely.
doing of biophilic design. I think it's really beautiful. I think we've lost so much, haven't we, really? I mean, from your perspective, I mean, what you're seeing, we've lost a lot. I mean, it's part of SUGi's mission, isn't it? Is to sort of like regenerate cities and spaces and urban areas, particularly. But what have we lost by neglecting our soil, do you think?
Well, I mean, we've lost this. Um, they keep on saying that we've only got, how many, maybe like 20 or 30 more harvests in the soil that we have right now because it's so depleted and we've been throwing chemicals on there that kills everything. So we're not just killing the pests and disease that we don't want, but we're killing everything else that's beneficial in there. So you know, that in turn is making our harvest yield a lot smaller, but then it also means that the nutrients that is actually going into the plant is a lot lower. So when we're eating that, where our nutrient intake is a lot lower as well. So we're losing a lot of this connection. We're losing um, connection to what is making us happy or what making us healthy. One of the things that we're always very keen to do is, uh, if the weather permits, is tell people not to use gloves when they're doing their planting. Get the soil onto your hands. get that microbiome onto you and let that get into your system, because there's bacteria in there that is really beneficial to us. That is great for increasing our mood or making our mood better. Um, so yeah, we're always encouraging get involved, get your hands dirty. It's there's more good in the soil than there is bad, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're losing. We're losing that connection to nature. We're losing that understanding. Um, we've, I was speaking to somebody last week, and he comes from a family of generational farmers, and he said his grandfather and great grandfather's generation worked with nature so much. His father's generation was all about suppressing nature and kind of using chemicals to control nature and dominate nature. But what his generation is doing now is trying to learn what his grandfather and great grandfather was doing, relearn that image, and I think that's a great is a great parallel in what's going on in society. We've lost that connection, or we're losing that connection, and we're trying to relearn it now after a period of kind of doing something differently and then realizing, well, yeah, there were great benefits to that, but we've lost a lot from that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's mad, isn't it? Even by putting gloves on, we're kind of even separating ourselves off this whole, tidiness, cleanliness. We've removed ourselves so much by whatever it is. Maybe it is commercial enterprise that says we want to sell you cleaning products and we want to sell you all this stuff that you really need. It's all about product and consumerism, really, ultimately, I suppose. But it's probably been some of the driver anyway.
Yeah.
But I love it when I get my hands dirty and it goes all down my nails and everything, and it comes out. you
Yeah,
know. It's
exactly.
sort of it's not
Exactly.
like you
Yeah.
just a bit of water and it's off again.
It's
It's
off
kind of
again.
dissolves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I love coming in with dirty hands and
yeah,
marks on my face and like scratched up knees and all that.
yeah,
Yeah, it feels like a very rewarding
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
And I find that the more time that I'm out in the field doing,
Mm.
the maintenance, the forest keeping, that kind of stuff, and planting, the happier I am.
Yeah.
Those weeks where I'm stuck behind the computer or in the office, that are more detrimental to my mental health, but
Mm.
also to my physical health. A week of sitting at the desktop and my neck is sore, my shoulders are sore, my knees creak, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm out planting, yeah,
Mm.
there's tiredness, but I don't have those ailments as much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the last 2 weeks for me, I've literally been in front of the computer. But Friday, it was a lovely day. I took the camera, went off into, as I mentioned before, we started recording Ashridge Forest near where I
Yeah.
am, and then sort of just south of Cambridgeshire. I just had to, and I feel so much better today. I can cope with. I mean, it's so stressful. Obviously, I've got the conference in a few weeks, and it's just like you have no idea the level of stress I'm under. But
Yeah, I'm
I feel
sure with
fine.
the conference coming up,
Yeah,
it's
but I
starting to ramp up.
yeah, but I feel fine, It's kind of like everything is just put in perspective, and I'm back to almost like a baseline again now for me. So,
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. I want to ask you actually, what transformation have you witnessed? It's maybe sort of socially or psychologically, ecologically as well, from
Yeah.
through some of the projects that you've worked on.
I mean, I think the most obvious and the thing that kind of um, uh, comes to mind quickest is the joy that we get from children when they get involved. So we do a lot of planting in schools.
Mm.
When we do planting in schools, we always invite the students to come out and plant the forest with us. And most of the planting that we've done has been in East London with schools. And that's in areas where students don't come from such affluent backgrounds. So the opportunity to have a garden or even a balcony or even some plants is a lot less. And a lot of these students have never planted a tree, have never planted anything, have never dug in the dirt. I've never seen a worm. Oh my God, the joy that children see when they see a worm for the first time is so exciting. I 2 weeks ago, I was planting some trees with students, and that was the main event for all of them. Like whenever anybody would say, "Oh, I found a worm," like half of them would run over, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah." But it's that kind of experience is becoming um it's becoming less of the norm, and it's becoming a rarity that children can have that experience of getting dirty, of playing in the dirt, of kind of digging and seeing things grow. Uh, I mean, another thing with children is when we do these plantings, what we're finding is that they are very individually minded at first. So they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've planted 10 trees. Super excited. This one's my tree, that one's my tree. I planted this." They always come ask you, "What tree is this?" I'll be like, "Okay, that's a cherry tree then. That's my cherry tree. I'm going to mark it." But when we have subsequent visits, that I want to go out to see my tree thing turns into, can we go out to see our forest? So there's this change, and there's kind of like more of a community thing that happens over the time of being out there and learning to look after something that's not just an individual item, but something that we've done together. So that's an incredible connection and a great change that we're seeing with community engagement.
Yeah.
The other thing too is we're finding that the forests that have the most success are the forests where the community around the planting has been engaged with it from the start. The more engagement there is and the more acceptance of the forest, it seems that the forests grow quicker, are healthier, less damage is done, more care is taken into it, the community engage with it a lot more. So we're seeing that a lot as well. And that's kind of it's crazy how we have that kind of parallel, like we have forests where, they've not been successful, or damage has happened, vandalism has happened, and those are the communities where there has been very little engagement.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, is community connection to it.
Mm.
But as far as ecological, we're just starting to really take data from that information.
Mm.
So earlier this year, we did a project with a company called Ecoacoustics. So what we did is, with three of our more established London forests, we installed these sound recorders in trees, and they were there to record the birds and the bat sounds that would come through the forest, or yeah, in the forest over a period of time. So it was a month and a half. What they did is recorded 10 seconds out of every minute, and then we fed that through an AI program. And the results that are coming back is just incredible. We're getting, so I love to use our South Bank forest as the biggest example. So South Bank, um, completely brutalist.
Yeah.
There's no way you can get more concrete jungle than that. It is just literally just concrete. But we've planted a forest in there in 2 years. It has been super successful. Um, and we put in this recorder in there, and we were getting incredible feedback. Like, we're getting blue tits, wagtails, green finches, blackbirds. You'd get gulls because it's close to the Thames. But then, we've got some really unusual things that I would never have thought that we've got. So we had tawny owls,
Oh,
and we had peregrine falcons recorded as well, which, I would have never have thought that that would have been something that would be attracted to there, because there wasn't enough biodiversity in that space. But yeah, so those kind of things are coming into our spaces, into the forests. And we've started using iNaturalist, the app iNaturalist, which is a a a data collection for biodiversity. And that's not just insects and birds and mammals, but also plants as well. And essentially what you do is you take a photo of it. It has an AI, it identifies it for you. It gets uploaded, and then that gets verified by somebody else. So that they're double checking the AI. And what we've done is we've created these spaces on iNaturalist where all our forests are. So anytime somebody comes to the forest and takes a picture of something in our forest and uploads it to iNaturalist, we get it as a data set.
Oh, I see.
We're getting a picture of all the insects, of all the unusual plants, of all the fungi that is growing on in our forest. So it's really early stages for that, but it's really interesting that what kind of information we're getting. But we're also hoping we're engaging people, especially young people who are, more commonly using their phones
Yeah.
than most, but to use their phone to engage with nature. So yeah, that's incredible as well.
Yeah.
And what else are we doing? I mean, we've got a really interesting thing that we've started this year, and I think it might carry on into a larger project, is we did something with Kathy Willis at the Oxford University, a study on how urban spaces can benefit the mental and physical health of humans when they're around the space. And more specifically, the VOCs, or the volatile organic compounds that are released by trees and inhaled by humans, and how that affects people's pulse rate and their feeling of calm or anxiety. So what we were doing is we were getting people to come around to our forests, sit for about 30 minutes. Before they do the sit down, we'll do a pulse rate and get them to answer a questionnaire on anxiety and calmness. Do the 30 minutes and then do the same thing again. And then we take them to a control site and do the same process again. And we haven't gotten a full report yet, but the preliminary findings is showing to be like really interesting, like how much calmer people are by just sitting in that environment or just being close to that environment and inhaling those volatile organic compounds. So much so that Kathy is kind of really curious to see how we could do more with it. So yeah, uh,
Yeah.
we're we're learning a lot, and it's something that we've really started focusing on recently, is learning a lot about how do we quantify what's going on in our forests. Because I mean, I'm probably the person who's in the forest the most out of everybody in the company. And I can tell you, there's so many benefits. I can feel it. I know it for myself.
Yeah.
But now it's great to have that quantification coming from different sources and different uh, reputable institutions that are telling us, yes, what you're saying or what you're feeling is actually right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I think the more of these SUGi can create these beautiful forests in different places, I think the better. Like you say, the biodiversity, the physical, I'm not only the mental health
Mhm.
benefits. There's so many, isn't it? And the health of the soil, health and I just you sort of think, well, how do the birds know that they're well, because they're flying, aren't they? Of course, and they're looking for greenery. They're like, wow, that looks lush and healthy as well. They'll only go somewhere where it's healthy as well, won't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just that, it's the insects. So
Ah,
what we're doing is we're starting at such a granular level. We're starting with the microbiome, so the bacteria and all of that, but then that attracts the insects attract the birds,
yeah.
and so on and so on. So yeah,
Ah,
it's great that you can kind of start with that level, and then it just automatically, that ecosystem just does it for you.
yeah.
And that's what I mean when I say it all starts in the soil. Like
Yeah.
we get that soil right, and then the next thing you know, you've got birds of prey,
Yeah.
that kind of
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Um,
Yeah.
so you're going to be speaking at the Biophilic Design Conference on the 17th of November in London this year. And you're obviously going to be discussing how access to nature really helps community, and you're going to be sharing a particular project with us. I mean, maybe you can share in that particular project that you've done is
Yeah,
just a little bit, kind of give us a bit of a taster of, I mean, because when you told me about it a few weeks ago when we chatted,
yeah,
I just thought that was just so phenomenal. I've been keep mentioning it to people since
yeah,
actually. So if you,
yeah.
that would be
I mean, it
amazing.
was my passion project for 2024.
Yeah.
It was something that we thought could happen, then it couldn't happen, and then it came on and off the board about like 5 times before it actually came to realization, and we planted it. And it's essentially a school, um, or it's called, I believe they're called a Prus unit. So it's not officially a school, but it's for students who have been expelled from other schools, and it's a final opportunity for them to pass their GCSEs or their A levels. So they're allowed to come into those environments and learn and study for those specific tests. And it's literally 300 meters from the end of the runway at City Airport.
Mm.
So that means every plane that goes off and every plane that lands, you're 300 meters away from it. So
Gosh.
that environment is just,
Yeah,
I can't,
horrible.
I can't understand how you could study in that kind of
No.
environment. It's incredible. Um, so it's that area of London where a lot of students come from backgrounds that are not affluent, who are kind of challenging backgrounds, that type of thing. And the school itself didn't have any green space at all. It's all asphalt. It's all covered. So the space that we wanted to develop was originally designed so that you could the children had some play area, so they had some climbing what is it, apparatus or equipment. They had some things, some swings and that kind of thing, but it had gone into disrepair over time, so the students weren't allowed in that space anymore. And we were able to get in there and remove everything, remove the asphalt, dig down, get soil brought in, and it was a huge amount of soil. I think it was over 100 tons of soil that we brought in, and then plant with the students. Uh, and yeah, it's incredible. These kids are pretty tough kids, and a lot of these kids weren't hugely interested in planting because it's not something that they would be
Yeah.
accustomed to or think that is interesting. But by the end of it, it was that thing of how many did you plant? I planted 40, you know. Um, it was really interesting because all of them wanted the biggest spade that we could give them. I've got a planting spade that I always use specifically for planting small trees. Um, and all of them were like, I want that. Can I use that? Can I use that? But that enthusiasm
Yeah.
built, over that short period of time where they came out and they got involved. But yeah, yeah, it's such a great space. It's such a great story to have
Yeah.
these kind of kids come in. Um, and I mean, I'm planning to have a couple of images to show like the kids involved. And when our photographer was there and taking pictures, and he sent it into the office of all the images to choose what we could use, a lot of them we couldn't use because they were throwing up gang signs. These kids were like, I don't think it's quite what we can show on our website. That kind of thing. But yeah, that's the kind of student body that they have over there.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
how awful. I mean, as well, just to shove them. I mean, literally shoving them at the end of the route, end of the, yeah, end of
Yeah.
the runway. I remember
Yeah.
you saying, so it was end of the line, really.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you just don't care. It's like we don't care
Absolutely.
about society. We don't care about that. And they're all gonna, I mean, and then they just, whatever they're gonna go off into the world at, you're just setting them up to fail.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I really love again about, this biophilic design, biophilia, the biophilia hypothesis is that if we are connected more to something that's healing or gives us joy and comfort and everything else, then that's, it's got to be good. And I love the fact that that you guys exist and what you're doing. I think it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. I'm going to ask you because obviously we've got loads of architects and interior designers. We've got landscape architects as well, urban
Mhm.
planners, people
Yeah.
from the NHS, teachers. We've got all these people listening, families as well, that might be able to influence specification or anything.
Yeah.
How can they use like the sort of SUGi and into
Yeah.
mainstream city design? I mean, what advice
Well,
would
I mean, y- you know, again, this person I was speaking to last week was talking to me about how an architect in Germany, and he didn't give me the name of it, has designed a pocket forest inside of a factory.
Oh, wow.
What they've done is they've put this forest inside of a working factory. And the primary reason for doing that was to try to cool the interior space. So it doesn't use air conditioning. So it's kind of, biomimicry, essentially.
Yeah,
Sucking in cool, I mean, bringing in the air, having transevaporation kind of take place, cooling the environment. But then also what it was doing is it was cleaning the air as well.
yeah,
So what they've found is that sicknesses have dropped drastically because the air in the factory has been effectively filtered or purified so that there's less particles in the air that could cause, illness or disease there. So I mean, I think that's a great example of how we can bring in these projects into larger spaces, or even, you know, um, places like Morocco, where they have, the what's the word? It slipped my mind right now.
but
Um,
Like the
the
Riyadh.
Riyadh,
Yeah,
yes, where
yeah,
you're kind of you're building your living spaces
yeah,
around a garden or a green space. Again, incredible because of all those cooling benefits of attracting wildlife, of again cleaning the environment for you. That's a great way for architects to incorporate that into into the built environment there.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I mean, when we talk about landscape designers, I have a friend who's a garden designer, landscape designer. There's these guys called Parker and Butler who are gold medal winning Chelsea Flower Show gardeners, and they're starting to implement baseline surveys once they've done their garden design. So they're all about
yeah,
kind of rewilding, natural gardening, bringing in the right plant for the right spaces instead of changing everything to adapt to the plant that you put in, and attracting biodiversity. And what they're trying to do is to show their clients what the baseline is for when the garden is implemented,
right,
and then to get the client more engaged with what's going on, do this thing with iNaturalist or do surveys and record the insects that are in there. And then having a data set afterwards to say, look, in 1 year, what we've been able to accomplish. But then it also informs them on what kind of plants are being successful. Because a successful plant, a happy plant, is going to be a plant that's going to attract more insects, more pollen, more nectar and that type of thing. So they're using these kind of nature-based solutions to kind of inform how they are designing and what they're putting in. But so I think that's another great example of it. And where I mean, we have a lot of conversations together, and we're looking at ways that we would be able to do some work together where we could do pocket forests and their kind of garden designs and implement them into the right spaces. So, like larger public spaces, it would be incredible if we could do that. Because our pocket forests are great at attracting pollinating plants in the spring, but most of our plants are trees. So the pollinating aspect of that doesn't go on beyond the spring. So it'd be great to have something that attracts pollinators in the summer as well.
yeah,
So if we could integrate those two kind of sets of designs together would be great.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so that's great. City planners. I mean, but I mentioned about the kind of benefits that cities can have from having these quality green spaces, and I'm not talking just pocket forests, but I'm talking about bioswales,
Yeah.
uh, green roofs, you
Yeah.
know, meadows as well, like wildflower meadows, all of those, like city planners, if we can kind of integrate those kind of thoughts, or even living walls, there are, I know it's a controversial kind of um, uh, subject with living walls because some of them aren't done really well. There's a lot of maintenance that comes into it, but there are some people who are doing it slightly differently now, where their green walls need a lot less maintenance and a lot less care, and they're great at attracting biodiversity, but they're also great at cooling houses, and insulating houses as well. So I think, that I guess where that was going back to architects, but like city planners using kind of these nature-based solutions are a great way of mitigating floods, of keeping the city cool, of, helping to keep our waterways clean,
Yeah.
that type of stuff. So you utilizing them in different places, and it doesn't need to be huge, kind of massive forests. Like I said, something the size of a tennis court is ideal for us. So if we could have like 4 or 5 of those on an incline, and then flooding is mitigated by kind of a little bit of it being absorbed everywhere. You so I think, yeah, if we could kind of get that more of that going on in our city, it would be really beneficial as well.
Yeah, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it? If there's anyone listening here, are you open to people collaborating with you to come and reaching out and saying, look, we've got this piece of land, can we work with you? Got any help and advice and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We find that finding the land to do our interventions is the hardest bit of our job. You
Okay.
know, you would always think funding is the most difficult thing, but it's actually not. It's finding the land that's the
Brilliant.
most challenging. So if anybody has land that they would be interested in doing that with, uh, we're always very happy to have that conversation and collaborate.
That's amazing. Well, Adrian, we're getting near the end, and so before I ask you the final question, is there anything else that you'd like to add at this point?
The things that I would always want to see more of is the more connection that we have with nature. The ability to get out and be part of nature and be in nature, and to get away. I struggle with it myself. It's like struggle getting away from my phone.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in nature, but I think I could spend more.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the final question then,
Hmm.
everyone who comes on the podcast, if you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
Oh, wow. Mm, I mean, it would be a city that's part of nature, a city that's in nature. I was I've always lived in cities. I've been raised in larger cities, and always lived them, and I love living in urban spaces. But what I would love to see is more nature brought into it. So that means, like, walls covered in moss. I think there's, like, what is it, green concrete where moss grows through it. Now, that kind of thing. Green spaces indoors that lead you to the outdoors. So there's a blurring between the indoor space and outdoor space. Green roofs where you've got, you know, biodiversity up there, and you've got, places of refuge for pollinators, but also habitat for pollinators. But then also the ability to grow your own food up there, and growing it organically to get all those great nutrients and not killing the soil. So it's things like that I love it. But then even inside of the home, and I guess this touches on biophilic design a lot, is kind of having the sounds of nature inside of your house. So we've got a little a device that is motion operated that plays bird sounds every time you pass it. So having nature into your home, or having lighting that goes with your circadian rhythm, so it kind of gives you that different shades of light, during the day, that type of thing. So yeah, and then the the trees or the green life inside of your spaces that can clean your environment and remove the harmful VOCs that are off gassing off of curtains or fabrics that are fire retardant and then actually releasing more oxygen first of all, and then releasing VOCs that are great for mood enhancers and that type of thing. That's the world that I would love to see. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.